here on behalf of the Australian Leadership Project. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Ken Coghill, Professor at Monash University, former Speaker of the Victorian Parliament, and a leader in the preparation and training of parliamentarians, both in Australia and globally. Look, I'm delighted to be joined by a very old friend, Professor Ken Coghill. We served together in the Victorian Parliament. He's an inspiration to everyone who looks for integrity in public life. Welcome to the Australian Leadership Project, Ken.
Thank you very much, Victor, and likewise, I'm really pleased to be back with you, working with you in a slightly different way, but nonetheless collaborating.
Thank you. Look, the first question we ask our interviewees is, what are your favourite stories of Australian leadership?
Well, that's the one that had me stumped right from the beginning. I suppose some of the things that John Keynes stood for and did as Premier. And so one of the ones which I often quote is his use of privately purchased stamps for his private mail, even if that mail was going into the outbox at the Premier's office. And to my mind, that was a fantastic example of using his position and his understanding of the importance of integrity to get a message out and to get it out to people in the political sphere as well as the public service sphere. So I suppose that's my favourite one. The other one, which is not referred to very often, is the resignation of Bill Landier as one of the most senior members of the Cabinet. And that was due to the Premier, quite rightly, identifying the conflict of interest which Bill Landier had, and ensuring that in Bill's failure to recognise that himself, that he was no longer a member of the government.
And yeah, you've looked at Australian leadership and global leadership over many decades. What do you see as the unique qualities of Australian leadership, Ken?
I think it has been a deep commitment to equality and egalitarianism, but I see that fading, particularly on the Conservative side of politics. Forgive my partisan approach there, but who knows, you may even share that. So I think that over the long term, it has been that egalitarianism, which has been an important part of politics and public policy for many decades now, but which I see as fading, and especially so in the case of the 2018 federal budget.
As we're having this conversation, the Royal Commission on the Financial Services sector is convening again, and you and I have had a long interest in integrity, you through really trying to develop much better systems for training parliamentarians and parliamentary integrity, and for me in recent years through the Global Integrity Summit. But beyond integrity, what are the other things that Australians are looking for in their leaders today?
I think that they are looking for greater involvement in decision making. In other words, more openness by government. And my particular reason for raising that at the moment is my membership of the Open Government Forum, which is part of Australia's commitment as a member of the Open Government Partnership. So I think that desire is there for Australians to be taken into the confidence of their political leaders. Now, against that, when people are offered the opportunity, the level of participation is sometimes disappointing. There have been some really good examples in recent times, which I would regard the restructure of the City of Geelong as one of the best ones, where the state government said to the people of Geelong, we're going to ask you to go through a process of developing a new model for the governance of Geelong, and we will accept and legislate whatever it is that you come up with, and basically that's what they have done. So that sort of example in Australia and in other countries I see as very important to the future of representative democracy.
It's interesting, Ken, because I'm on the board of Yarra Valley Water, and as part of our pricing submission process, we actually used a similar citizens jury process to that used by the City of Greater Geelong, and it really did help to inform, a company that has 1 million customers, what the customers really want, and therefore we could put a very effective case to the regulator, the Essential Services Commissioner, on what people wanted. And we actually had participation with great enthusiasm over several weeks by that citizen jury.
And I'm sure in my mind, I think the literature supports it, that the role that you and your board of Yarra Valley Water took in encouraging people to understand that they were being genuinely involved and had a real opportunity to influence what the authority did, was very important in facilitating that high level of engagement.
Now, a more personal question. I mean, you've been a leader yourself for many years. You've mentored so many other people. Who have been the leaders in your life? Ken, who's inspired you?
Look, the person I most often think of is the late Tommy Wren, and I got to know him well when he was Minister for Urban and Regional Development, and I was living at Wodonga and was a member of the Wodonga Rural City Council. And he, more than any other minister of the Whitlam government, achieved a lot and kept himself out of trouble, whereas quite a number of other ministers might have been high flyers, but they got themselves into enormous problems of one type and another, whereas Tom came through it with a great record of achievement and integrity for the way in which he conducted himself. So he's the person that I most often quote. But when I worked with Alan Hunt when he was President of the Legislative Council and I was Speaker, that was a great relationship, and I had enormous respect for Alan, which only grew as I got to know him better during that 4-year period. So I suppose those would be the two standouts for me.
Oh, terrific. Thank you for that. And the last question we have is, you're an optimist. You get great energy, you give great energy. What makes you so optimistic, and what is your case for optimism?
I can't explain where it comes from. That there's nothing particularly in my family background that would lead me to be optimistic, or otherwise for that matter. So I have some difficulty answering that question. But I think in terms of where mankind is going with climate change and what have you, you've got the choice of either throwing your hands up in the air and being despairing and despondent, or you can say, well, look, we're not doing as well as we should, but at least we must do as much as we can. So that's the basic approach I take on that issue, and I suppose it applies pretty broadly in the way in which I approach life.
Ken, look, thank you so much. We wish you all the best. Your passion, your research on making people better parliamentarians and helping to prepare people for Parliament is absolutely superb. So on behalf of the project, we wish you well, and we thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Ken Coghill, and thank you too for joining us for this interview. If you'd like to read more or see more, go to our website at australianleadership.com, and please feel free to pass on your own suggestions and your own wisdom on Australian leadership, its qualities and its great characters.